All right, so I'm going to keep this really short because there are some amazing workshops that are about to happen. The era of innovating only in PCs, phones, and tablets is over. You guys can see that just by what the sponsors have told you. Watches, home automation, cybersecurity, this is where technology is headed. And that next generation is not going to be led by the people who brought you the past 20 years ago. It's going to be led by the people in this room. Every single one of you are makers. And because you're makers, you're here today. You're here to make a thing, you're here to make a site, you're here to make yourself better. But you're here because you're makers. You're going to lead us all into that next generation of tech. And today we're going to talk very quickly about how you're going to do that. First of all, this is probably the most important thing. You're going to know who you are. I recently interviewed and got a job. And these are the 4 questions that they asked me. After being in the industry for 13 years, I thought they would ask me, tell me about your work, or design, whatever. But no, these are the questions they asked me. And these are the kinds of questions they're going to ask you too. You should be able to say, when you go up to any of the companies this weekend, what are you looking for? Hardware internship, software internship, security, an opportunity to work in a group, an opportunity to save lives. Working in hardware, what is it? You should know that. Take a few minutes and write these answers down, and make sure these are very familiar to you. What is your superpower? That sounds weird and ridiculous, but it's a very common term in the industry. You should know what that is. Is it bringing people together? Is it organizing events? Is it debugging? Is it testing? Is it writing amazing code? Whatever it is, you should know that. And this superpower is what you bring to the table. This is what the company wants from you. And if your superpower matches something the company is looking for, you've got it. What was your favorite project? Say, a lot of you are new coders. You've only been doing this for a little bit. That's okay. Talk about why you got into tech in the first place. Your favorite project doesn't have to be a tech project. It can be a thing you organized, a thing that you participated in. It could be this hackathon. Talk about your favorite project, but you speak about it with passion and you tell the story of why. And then you have biggest technical challenge you face. It could be starting over. That's okay. Coming to this hackathon and learning to use our Arduino board. That could be it. I know that today my biggest technical challenge will be using an Arduino board. I've never done that before. I'm really excited to do that. And always have 4 unique words to describe you. And don't make them smart, technical, good at code. No. Think of 4 unique words to describe who you are as a holistic person. And bring them up in your conversations with these companies. Bring them up with people who you're going to work with. Because that's who you are. You define who you are. The world is not. But this is what my last interview looked like. And I was not ready for it. I fumbled through every single one of these questions. And I made a promise to myself that I'm going to know these answers next time. Next thing, be customer obsessed. Every single company that came on here today and talked about sponsorship is customer obsessed. Every single one of them. Everyone talked about what kind of impact they have on the customers. Being customer obsessed is talking about how do we watch customers, not review, but how do we observe customers using our product? How do we see customer data without it being stealing the data? How can we see their data? Customer need is the greatest negotiation tactic you buy. When I first took my job out of college, I asked to see customers. My manager had me on a plane in Budapest. I followed a guy around who spoke Magyar, but I watched him use my product. And then I knew what was wrong with it and what needed to be bugged. But unless I watched that customer, I never really know that information. I tell that story a lot because it made one of the biggest differences in my career. Make sure you watch customers. If you make an app for people, put it in the hands of some people and watch them use it, get feedback, get data. Wherever you go, whether that's school, a hackathon group, a company, become one of your peers. Don't wait to be invited, but make yourself invaluable to the group. Talk to every single person. This is the time to stay there and get to know people. Ask the questions. Why are we doing this? Who is this for? What is this going to change in people's lives? How is this going to be used? Ask all the questions, because when you're new, when you're entering the field, you can ask whatever you want. And people will not think that you're dumb. They'll think, wow, look at those fresh eyes they've got. This is great. And you'll make people rethink about why they're doing things. Many times, companies and groups and organizations have been doing things for years because it's lazy. That's how we've always done it. And new people are the key to changing it. You guys have that key. So change track top issues that everyone talks to you about. People love to open up to new people. They will tell you, oh, we hate the fact that our bill system's flawed. We hate the fact that customers don't like us. Track these things. Volunteer to fill one of those gaps. There's a great story where Kabir leaves the ex-CTO cleanup. He first went to work at a tech company. He was very young. He was 20 years old. And he was promised to work on this really glamorous front-end facing feature. And that team was going through a reshuffle, as it happens. So he was put on the bill system. He said, bill system? I didn't really work on the bill system. But he realized that he had such an opportunity to shine because everyone he talked to had told him the bill system sucks here. It takes forever to reshuffle. There's always deployment issues, testing is hard. So he said, you know what, I'm going to be the guy who redoes the build system. Within a year, he was the expert, he was the champion, he controlled what code went how running. He was a hero, and because of that, he was asked to be the CTO of many companies, including Dell. Now he doesn't have to work for them, so think about that. Whenever you go somewhere, understand the rituals and invite yourself. One of our VPs at Skype told me this, and that stayed with me. When he first went to grad school, he would go into a room where his fellow students sat, there were 7 of them, and he felt out of place because he worked for them and no one else did. But every day at 3 o'clock, he watched these people get up and walk out the room. He thought they were in a cult. And on the 4th day, he said, I'm going to join this cult. So he stood up with them and followed them outside. It turns out they went to 7-Eleven and not Satan Worshiping Society, so that was a big deal. But he joined them from that day forward, and he became part of the club. Invite yourself. Make yourself a part of it. Ain't nothing wrong with role models. That is Megan in the picture. That is from the summer she was on my team. We had 16 women on that team out of 30 people. It was really, really fun. Diversity is not just nice to have. Diversity, we as companies don't come here and talk about diversity because, oh, it's fun to work with people. It's been proven with numbers and data that teams with diverse workplaces and diverse engineering staffs make more money. They have more revenue, they have better profits, they have better customer retention, they have a better connection with the community. That's why we're all here. And having a rich, diverse engineering team is one of the best things that companies can do. We realize that, and only you guys in the room can make us actually take that and use it to build better products. That's why you're here, because you're here to build better products for the global audience. A lot of people ask me about imposter syndrome. I don't feel like I belong. I got here by accident. They're going to find out that I am a fraud. And that is an imposter syndrome #1 symptom. And I'll tell you something, and this is, I've been researching imposter syndrome a lot, and it turns out that it's overachievers disease. Overachievers know that what they're doing is hard, and that's why they feel like imposters. They feel like everyone around them is so much smarter. But I've got an imposter syndrome story. Recently, Bill Gates came to Microsoft and told a group of people, we need to make the charge into the next generation of technology. We have to do things like home automation, cloud, mobile, etc. And someone said, Bill, you're the guy to lead us there. And he said, no, I got here by accident. I found Microsoft because nothing like that existed then. I dropped out of school. I didn't even finish. I found the Gates Foundation with the help of my wife. She is the powerhouse behind that. Everything I've done has happened to me by accident. I'm not in a position to lead you. Now we're all thinking, Bill, if you're curing malaria, I think you're okay. But he believes that he's an imposter. He says, Warren Buffett is so organized with his life, so good at saving. He's a clear success. Warren Buffett says, Bill is a visionary, he's changed the world. I'm an imposter. I just know how to save them. So think about that first. Next time you have imposter syndrome, you are not alone. What I do when I'm faced with imposter syndrome, like I am this weekend, because I'm talking to some amazing people in this room, identify role models, find people who are good at the thing that you are good at, and go confess your flaws to them. And they'll tell you that's pretty normal. They'll tell you they've been there too. Get their advice, and mimic the hell out of their work. And that this is perfectly fine. Find out how they started. What programming language did they start with? What is the first application and what piece of code that they wrote? Write that down. Samples are your friend. Right? We all mimic what we don't know. When you first learn to paint, or when you first learn to ride a bicycle, you watch someone else do it, and then you copy what they do. You're not sprung onto this earth knowing how to write code. That's just not true. Right? You mimic a lot of things and then you good at it. Don't be afraid of failure. Failure holds so many people back. Because they think, oh, I can go try this. I can go try Raspberry Pi, but I've never done hardware. I'll probably fail. That's okay, because failure is the first step to success. Right? There's no rule in the book that says you can do anything once, that you got a one-time shot. There's no rule, except bungee jumping and skydiving. So if you're not good at that, don't do it. But other things, you do things until you're great. When people come to me and say, how do I get an internship? I don't have any experience and I don't have any. And I say, make your own internship. Why are you putting power in companies? Make your own company and have that company build apps, build websites for local businesses. We're in a place where the local businesses don't have enough tech talent in-house. They would love for a smart computer science student to come to them and go, hey, your website looks like it's from the 90s. Would you like me to do it right for you? Don't say like that. But customer empathy. But they would love it. They would love for you to come and rebuild their website to be beautiful, modern, work on a mobile device. That would be incredible. Do you know how many local shop owners are also computer scientists? Pretty much none. So they would love for you to do. I made this really awful picture on the name, but it showcases a truth, which is you've got a goal. What does failure look like? Not starting or getting a third of the way there. Right? When you've gotten a third of the way somewhere, you can start a third of the way up. You already know what works, what doesn't work. You're not starting at zero. I believe true failure is not starting up. It's impostering your way out of it because it's going to be hard because you don't think you're going to reach your goal. When I first went to the University of Michigan locally, I took computer science. I never coded in my life. Barely seen a computer. I walked into East 100, which is known for being hard. It's a lecture hall like this, 500 people. And they're going to cover bits, gates, assembly programming, binary programming, and C++. I didn't know any of those words. Everyone in the room almost had done most of those. So I failed. I got a D-. I had two options. Become an economist, because, math, or do it again. If I hadn't done it again, I'd be living a very different life, and I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today. Because unfortunately, there's no economists happening. Maybe there should be, but right now there aren't. So, you know what? I did it again. I took it again. And then that second time, I got a B, which some of you might be like, wow, why didn't you get an A? Because it's hard, that's why. I was quite pleased with my B. And you know what? The real world actually does not give a damn what your grades were in engineering school. It does not care. If you graduate and you know the fundamentals, your A or B or C or D in operating systems does not matter. I got a C in operating systems when I graduated college. I worked on an operating system for 10 years. That worked out. Don't try to watch your grades, you just have to run. This is probably the most important thing we can do, building relationships. I'm so glad you're here today. Because you're going to learn some really cool hardware, you're going to challenge yourself, and you're going to learn to code in some new languages. But you're here to build relationships. And relationship building is how you get good jobs. That's how I've gotten every job I've ever had. That's how most of the people in this room were on their second job and got their second job. I went to Grace Hopper a few years ago, Cheryl Sandberg School. I was fangirling in the back. She's here to say hi. Should have said hi. But I also met Ray Johnson from Microsoft, who's amazing, for example, shirt, because I love him. And I was listening to Cheryl and said, I really wish I was part of the Lean-In Circle, because the Lean-In Circle is a support group for people like yourself who are facing similar issues. So I said, Rain, I wish we had a Lean-In Circle at Microsoft. I would love to join. And she said, Donna, you should probably just start a Lean-In Circle. And I said, oh my gosh, what amazing advice. So I started a Lean-In Circle. I emailed Ray back and said, I thank you so much for your advice. I used it. I started one. And I emailed 20 people I knew and said, hey, come join my Lean-In Circle. 64 children. So it turned out that there's 64 other people like me who thought they needed a Lean-In Circle. Ray says, that's awesome, Donna. Do you mind telling that story of this little event I'm having at the University of Washington? I said, sure. I was imagining a classroom and people, I could tell the cute story of my Lean-In Circle. Turns out it's the Women in Science and Engineering Conference. I'm a keynote speaker. And I've never done a keynote speech before. So I did the only thing I could think of, which was say, thank you, Rain, what a wonderful opportunity. This is a blessing. Speaking alongside me was Randy Zuckerberg. Has any of you ever heard Randy Zuckerberg speak? Randy Zuckerberg is not a speaker. She's a performer. She's performed on Broadway. Her speech is not, bits of advice and anecdotes. It's a one-woman show. They're singing and dancing. I highly recommend you hear Randy Zuckerberg speak if you can. So I'm feeling very illustrious right about now. And I tell her, hey, I'm feeling really illustrious right about now. I'd love some advice. And she laughed and said, I think you're doing fine. And a few weeks later, she reached out to me and said, do you want to be in Glamour? I said, okay, if you're a girl in the room, please tell me if you do not want to be. And I said, what do you want me to do in Glamour? She said, they're having a special on women in tech, and I think you'd be really funny and entertaining. And I said, wow, okay, impostering, but we don't say no to opportunities. So I got to be one. Then Brianna Burroughs from I Want the Job reached out to me and said, hey, I saw you in Glamour. Do you mind if I interview you and profile you for I Want the Job? That's where a lot of influential women in the world talk about what they do for a living and how they got into that field. We're talking about people who work at NASA, people who run NASCAR, not necessarily engineers at Microsoft. So I was, of course, really very frustrated, but I didn't say no. And because of that interview, I've met so many incredible people. So many people emailed me and reached out to me and said, your story sounds really interesting and I can relate. And because of that, I'm able to go around and talk to groups like this. So, how do you network, right? I hate networking. Networking is awful because that involves business cards and round tables. Instead, attend things. You're attending things right now. So, that's what you're done. Good job. Attend meetings, lectures, meetups, hackathons. Attend these things because that's where you meet people who are like you and also different. If you meet someone who is inspiring, like any of the sponsors up here, or any of the people you're sitting next to, or any of the people in your groups or the mentors, tell them that. Tell them that you inspired me. You said something really interesting. I love what you did there. Because no one hears that now. When was the last time any of you heard that you were awesome? Not recently, no. Right? No, people love to hear that, and people like to be appreciated. Ask for 15 minutes of their time, because that's not very much. And ask, do you mind if we talk about that topic? Because I love to learn more about it, and you know more about it. And then follow up. Follow up with them, because if they say yes, they mean that. They're not just saying, oh yeah, that sounds great, please don't call me. They don't mean that. Because those people, they don't come out of their shells and attend things, right? They're there because they want to meet you, they want to meet other people. Thank them for their help, ask who else you should be talking to, then volunteer to help them out in any way you can. If you use their advice or the thing that you learned from them, follow up with what you do. Because it happens a lot to mentors, especially. You give some advice, someone may or may not apply it, but you don't know what happened. Were they fired? What happened, right? If the advice is terrible, you should stop giving it. So, right? Like, never give this advice again, mentor, it's terrible. Or that advice is the best advice I've ever gotten. Please repeat it to everyone. Please write a book on it. They would love to hear this. Track your network. I'll show you how I track mine. But don't rely on, oh, it's all my email or I'll remember, because you won't. You really won't. You think you will. You think your network's not that big, but your network's actually huge. Your network is not just people you know, it's the people they know, and the people they're going to. the tracker. And for the ladies in this room, remember that men are your friends, actually. There's a lot of conversation right now in Silicon Valley about, oh, men, they don't want women in tech. Well, that's actually bullshit. Okay. Here's why. Because men understand the value of diversity. Men like to work with people different than them. I say this because I work with men all the time. I have 7 mentors. 6 of them are men. And every single one of them has been incredibly helpful and very helpful. My women mentor also very helpful and very kind. Men have a lot more time to mentor and coach than women do because there are more of them. I'm married to an incredible guy who works in tech. He laments that no one has ever asked him to be their mentor. 0 times. Not because he's not personable, technical, or great, but because people assume he's going to say no. He would never say no. He would spend more time because he has more time to give. Men are critical, so reach out to him. Make sure to have them in your room. Here's how I track mine. I'm very meticulous in Excel. I've got this archive to every cloud in the whole world because my network is one of my most valuable resources. I keep track of who I met, where I met them, what's the last nice thing I did for them, who introduced me, and any information about them. It seems really scientific, but we're scientific people. And this is how you network. This is how you build relationships, one person at a time. This is going to become very important, customizing your career. Because we're not in an industry where you graduate college, you take a job, and you stay there for 35 years. We're not in a homework trade. That's not what you do. Instead, you customize your career. You take a job, and you figure out what else you like to do. I took a job in software engineering. I worked at Oracle my first 2 years. And I realized I also love telling stories. I love meeting customers and telling stories. I said, let me tell stories in a literal way. So I started writing. I started writing fiction. Anyone who pissed me off got put into a book and killed. True story. So people learn really quickly that news. Like, hey, I'm in your book. Hey, I'm dead on page 78. I don't know. Watch this. Customize your career. It turns out I've used my fiction writing skills a lot in my work. It really helps to be able to tell a customer story in a compelling kind of way. We are all creators of stories. Every single person should learn to tell a really good story. A few years ago, 3 years ago, I went through a devastating breakup. And as you do when you go through a devastating breakup, is make dramatic life changes. So I said, I'm going to become a fashion designer. I didn't know how to sew. I'd never seen a sewing machine in my life. I watched about 5 seasons of Project Runway. I'm sure I got this, right? No problem, I got this. So I marched myself into a fashion school in Seattle, and I say, I want to do what they're doing over there on that table. They're all draping, dress forms, look really good. And the registrar says, awesome, it's going to be this much for the year, what kind of sewing machine do you have? And I said, what? You need one of those? And I said, yes, that's what one does. One is a fashion designer, they use the sewing machine, and sews things. It goes on one's body. I said, oh, okay. So I had to go teach myself to sew off of YouTube. Then I hired someone, because that's actually hard. Then I hired someone to teach me to sew. Then I went to fashion school for a few years. It turns out that fashion design is a lot like engineering. There's a lot of 3D visualization, a lot of 3D modeling. It turns out that fashion school was scrapped in 1925. They still draw things on paper, and then they fit on a dress form multiple times. You don't actually make a thing until like 6 weeks after you start drawing. That's not cool. For tech people, this is unacceptable. You want to make a thing within an hour of learning that skill, right? Like, I learned a language, I'm making a thing. That's what you do. Instead, in fashion school, we're going to work on technique for a year before you make a thing. That's a technique. No. We learn by doing. We learn by making mistakes. We learn by sawing off a piece of our finger. Like, that's how we learn. So I started working on a 3D modeling tool, a 3D visualization tool to make fashion easier. Fashion school people mind blown, like, what is going on right now? It's my personal quest to reinvent the fashion industry to not be so stuck in it and put it into the hands of so many people who would like to get into it, but that are intimidated by, oh no, you have to sew skills of Coco Chanel. No, that's not enough. But customize your career. I spend my time writing novels, designing fashion, speaking, and engineering because I want to. Because I control the minutes of my day, and you control the minutes of your day. Keep up with what's coming up tomorrow. A mentor of mine calls this clairvoyance. Read a lot of things, because tomorrow is what you're going to be. I read a lot about wearables. I was just telling my friend Pamela because we think wearables are ugly. And there's very few wearables that are attractive out there. And I'm determined to make one that first isn't called a wearable, but second is not unattractive. So, back to what we were talking about at the beginning. So, the last generation of tech, that's dead. What's next? So let's talk about what's happening. 1950, you take a picture, you needed that guy. Today you need not that guy. 1994 to 2004, tech lived in PCs. That's just where they lived, servers, mainframe, laptops. Next 10 years was all about mobile, tablets, phones, apps. Mobile was the word, mobile developers, mobile apps. Next 10 years, that does not happen. Next 10 years, tech is going to explode into the real world. Robodynamics going up. That Kickstarter is doing pretty dang well. This robot is going to do away with laundry. Yes, right? Why are we still doing laundry? There's a freaking flying car out there. Why are we still doing laundry? I'm so offended that we're still doing laundry. We're doing dishes. How many of you did dishes this week, right? Dishes. I know. So what I want is this robot to actually do them in a reliable fashion. It's time. Saving lives with 3D printing, not news to us, right? Of course you save lives with 3D printing. Think about how ridiculous that would have sounded 10 years ago. Hey, we're going to save lives with 3D printing. What? All the medical people are like, no, that's just crazy talk. No, no, no. Now every single hospital on the planet has a 3D printer. Choose a prey. You don't like the shoes in the stores, go make your own. Choose your silhouette, choose your fabric, order them, they're delivered to your house. Australian woman hated all the shoes in the store, so she built a service that's designed for the people. HoloLens, the job that I interviewed for and got. Design, explore, communicate, change the way it's been done. We're going to design in 3D right here. Next time I come back around, I'm going to bring one of them with me. And we're going to design a motorcycle, a car, a building, a city, whatever, right here in 3D. Next to me. We're going to explore. You're going to show me your favorite coffee shop in Chapel Hill. I'm going to throw down a map. We're going to walk around it. We're going to communicate. I'm going to be able to Skype it to any of your classrooms. And just like you're seeing me now, I'll be standing right there. Because that's what technology brings you. Technology is magic. We should never forget that. We are alchemists. That is our job. Our job is to make the world better with tech. They're waiting for it. Tech is everywhere. It's going to be in even more places. Those of you who have passions around design, fashion, medicine, space, business, law, keep pursuing those passions. You don't have to lock them up with your computer science. Go partner with people who are specializing in those things, because that's where tech is headed. So, to keep up with tomorrow, practically speaking, what does that mean? For me, this is just for me. I learned one new programming language or paradigm every year. This year, I'm determined to learn variables, not only, determined. Work-life balance, people ask me about this a lot. Like, how do you balance all these things? Like, the thing is that I think we've been trained to say that by corporate America because none of you actually worry about work-life balance. You're all doing hundreds of things. Megan organized the conference while going to school looking for a job. She's not thinking, oh, is my work-life balance challenged today? Right? You never worry about this stuff. You do things you want to because you want to. You make time for the things you love. If you don't love what you're doing, stop doing it. Right? That's when work-life balance comes into place. If you find yourself doing something only for the money, think about why. Is it to fund all the other things in your life? That's okay. That's fine. That's a good answer. But if you're doing something just for the money and you've got no joy, no creativity going on, think about changing it. Because creativity will keep you going, and it will keep you passionate, and it will keep you evolving and making the world a better place. I keep up with Kickstarter because there's some crazy shit going on there, and you know that those things are going to become real. Tech think it's just great to know what's going on in the tech industry. When you go for your interviews, it's good to have a few headlines that you can refer to. Sorry, recruiters, I'm giving away our secrets. Hacker News is good because Y Combinator funds a lot of little startups. And they fund with little bits of money just to see what'll happen. So, you know, when something big is breaking. Prismatic is a new app I just started using. It rolls up things that I'm interested in wanting to do. Love that app. So good for getting my news, things that I care about right away. Jocelyn Goldfin gives amazing advice for college students as well as people working to do startups. She owned the newsfeed at Facebook. She's now an email investor. She's an amazing person, writes a really thorough blog on how to ask for a salary raise, how to get a promotion. For women, I really like Nice Girls Still Don't Get Corner Office because nice girls actually do get corner office. But there's a few key things that women sometimes do to sabotage ourselves. This book broke me of my bad habits, and I hope it breaks any woman who suffers from those habits. And I love Start With Why because it teaches you about the art of storytelling. And that is an art that everyone who is born with. Your parents will tell you. You made up so many stories when you were a kid. And somewhere along the way you stopped. It's time to start again. My name is Dona Sarkar. I'm writing a nonfiction book on this topic and many others. I've interviewed 30 leaders from tech in every single company you can imagine. This thing will hopefully be out this spring if I would sit down and write it. I make things in and out of Microsoft. I hope you will join me. Please stay in touch and have an incredible weekend. Thank you.